A lot of people bonded with their parents or their grandparents over our music, which is pretty I think it's amazing. Well, I got off the stage in front of this big crowd over in New Jersey like a year or so it was one of those big, huge festivals. And a guy came up to me and said, I lost my dad in January, and your music just brought back all the times he had with his dad, enjoying the Beach Boys music together, So that it's always an emotional experience for him.
Absolutely. I was talking to my mom and dad this morning.
Yeah.
I told them that I was going to be talking to you, and they were like, oh, I remember listening to them when I was in art school or going to college, and how wonderful that was,
Right.
And then I thought, well, not only my parents enjoyed that music, I have enjoyed that music. My niece and her little daughter, who's 8, will be going to your show tomorrow night, and they're super excited.
Awesome.
That's one of my questions, I guess, is how does that feel? You're touching on it, but how does that feel to be sharing the music generationally to loving fans?
Well, the Beach Boys music, we started recording over 60 years ago, and we're a bunch of young guys living in Southern California. And in our family, the Wilsons and the Loves, particularly the Wilsons, my mom was Emily Glee Wilson. My uncle was Murray Gage Wilson. He was the father of Brian, Dennis, and Carl Wilson, my first cousins who started the group. And so there was never a time when music wasn't a reality in our home. In fact, the previous generation, my parents, my mother came out from Kansas along with her siblings when she was about 5 years old, and they didn't have any money. It was the Dust Bowl days before the Great Depression. So they camped on the beach for a while before they found a house. And so, I mean, what they did have, though they didn't have money, they had music. So my uncles harmonized together in a quartet. My mom sang light opera in a trio. And it was a big deal. They sang on the radio, right? Anyway, so I grew up in a home with a grand piano, an organ, and a harp. I have 2 sisters that play the harp. There's never been a time in my life when there wasn't music. I mean, my mom would play opera music because she loved opera. She would, because it had drama and all this, and she would play that music to get us up to go to school in the morning. As a consequence, I was traumatized by opera music because it meant I had to get up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning and get ready to go to school, whether it be grade school, junior high, or high school. She would play the music so loud. If we played our rock and roll past halfway up on the hi-fi, she would play it all the way to 10 and blast. In fact, there was a woman living across the street and down the block, catacorner to our house. They came up to my mom, to our house, asked my mom to close the windows of the living room and not play the music so much because there was somebody dying of cancer, but they didn't like opera as much as she did. So, anyway, that's how much music has been a part of my life since before I was born. And so it's been a family tradition that because my cousin Brian and I got together and wrote some great songs that people really liked, it's lasted for over half a century.
Well, it makes me wonder, that opera, there's a lot of singing and projecting. Maybe that kind of seeped into your soul a little bit, that singing, that part of
I think it was more the church music we did. We went to Wednesday night youth night at Angeles Mesa Presbyterian Church, and on the way back from doing the church music, my cousin Brian and I and my sister Maureen would sing Everly Brothers in 3-part harmony, not just 2. And then we loved the doo-wop back in the day too, because the bass part and the high part and the lead and all that. So we just love singing together. Every holiday, birthdays, Easter, Christmas, 4th of July, New Year's Eve, it was all about music. And so the parents would sing their music and the kids would sing their music. And So that's how we got started. But, you know, long before we even thought about becoming a group and recording professionally.
You've been touring a lot.
Yeah.
You're kicking off a huge tour right now. You're starting on the west coast of Canada, which for all of us West Coast Canadians, I will thank you, because it's pretty awesome.
Well, we love Victoria and Vancouver. I know it's Vancouver Island, so it's a little confusing, but Vancouver and Stanley Park, but Victoria is a beautiful place. And so we've always enjoyed being in Canada. And we've had some great times. I mean, we've done C&E, P&E, we've done, you know, Casino Rama, Falls View Casino. We've done casinos, fairs, and normal regular theaters and amphitheaters in the summer. So we've had a great time in Canada. We've always found the Canadian people must have been listening to some of our music from across the way. Yeah.
But you must love touring.
Well,
Something you enjoy.
in 1964, my cousin Brian decided he didn't want to tour anymore. So there became two groups. One is the recording group, and one is the touring group. So his brother Carl and I, and Alan Jardine, Bruce Johnson took Brian's place after Glenn Campbell took his place for your middle name. Glenn Campbell took his place for a few months, and then Bruce joined our group in 1965. The first song he sang with us was California Girls. At any rate, you know, there became two groups, the live group and the recording group. And a lot of us were in both groups. But I have always favored the live music rather than the studio's great, and you can do incredible things in it, and you need it to do the tracks and the vocals and, you know, mix it all together properly to make it a proper record. So, but to me, I love the spontaneity and the effect that the live music has on people. And to see that so many years after we started, and some of our songs, even though they might be 40, 50, 60 years old, people still love them. I think that's great.
Yeah, they certainly do. Like I was saying, I was, you know, those harmonies, those melodies, it's feel-good music.
Yeah.
It's warm, fun, feel-good. Not just summer.
You know, in 1966, we did Good Vibrations. My cousin Brian went to several different studios and spent a fortune at that time in creating the track. When finally the composite track was finally put together for the single record, I dictated the lyrics. It was a poem. I dictated it to my ex-wife Suzanne, who was mother of Christian Love, who sings with us these days. And this was a couple of years before he was born. He was born in '68. I'm talking about '66. But there was the Vietnam War going on. There was integration problems and all kinds of issues, as there always are on the planet Earth. But I wanted to focus on the positive. So I wrote this poem about a girl who was into peace and love and flower power and all good things, right? And so I'm picking up good vibrations. She's giving me excitations. So I came up with that. I'm that part, the chorus, and my cousin Carl sang the lead, and we all contributed to the harmonies. But that was in the midst of all the terrible things that were going on at that time. Here's this song that was 100% positive, good vibrations. And there was a psychologist in Sheffield, England, who wanted to see which songs made people feel the best, because he's a psychologist. And so he with 2,500 people, he tested lots of songs, and Good Vibrations came in at #1 for making people feel good. Good, I Get Around was number 8. Earth, Wind, and Fire had number 10 with their September song. And there was a Bob Dylan in there, there was a Bob Marley in there, and a Pink in the top 10. So that's pretty awesome to come in at number 1 for making people feel good, I say. I think that's fantastic. And it's a beautiful song, you know. But Kokomo, which came out 22 years later in 1988, is probably the biggest selling single and the biggest sing-along that we have. It was featured on Full House because our friend John Stamos wanted us on his program, and he wanted to introduce our music to his fans, which he did. And by the millions, that people have heard that song, they learned that song, they liked it. We had letters from grade school teachers, bags of letters saying before Kokomo, our class didn't care anything about geography, but they wanted to know where all these places were. Aruba, Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahama, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty neat when you get boxes of letters from grade school teachers.
That's how I felt when I first heard the song. I saw it, I think it was on our music program. We had here Much Music or something.
Uh-huh.
And it came down, and it was at a time when I was long hair, into the heavy metal and whatnot, but I saw that song.
AC/DC.
I wanted to go to Kokomo. I wanted to know where that was too. It just seemed like, yeah, that's where I want to
And now we have a rum-based drink called Club Kokomo Spirits, and we have RTDs, ready to drink. And I came up with the idea for a Cocoa Mojito, because if I go out to a dinner or a club or something, and I'm going to order an alcoholic drink, I will order a mojito because I have a sweet tooth. First of all, it's mint and lime and lemongrass. So we found this lemongrass infused rum, and I said, well, now that's a good one. And now we have like 3 different rums, 2 of which won awards in a San Francisco worldwide competition. I mean, it must have been 300 or 400 or 500 rums entered in it, and we got double gold medals, and we came in really high. And for an entity that's only been around for 2.5 years or so, that's pretty good. We're selling in California, Nevada, and Arizona, but you can look up online Club Kokomo Spirits, and there's many states, and I'm not sure about Canada, but there are many states, like almost 40 states, where they'll ship it to you if you're interested. Right. But they're delicious, and yeah, they're really good.
You were saying, you know, you penned Good Vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
Have you always been a poet, you know, a writer? And
yeah.
Are you writing now, or are you coming up with new stuff these days?
Well, yeah, I have songs that I have written that are in my head that I haven't recorded yet. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But also, when I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, I wrote this song about a past life experience. And it was about a guy listening to a bugle, and it reminded him of long ago where he was in another time and place. So that's pretty far out when you're about 9, 10 years old. And then I wrote poems about these 2 girls I had a crush on when I was in junior high school. And I can still remember the poems, you know. And one was for an Italian girl named Juliette Montleone. Another one was for a girl named Sally Cherry with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a great ponytail and stuff. So I was too young and too shy to do anything about it, but I wrote poems about them.
What was it like? I mean, the music takes us all there to the seaside, the beach, the surf, the sand, the girls, the cars. What was it like?
Well, it obviously was our lifestyle, because we lived just a few miles from the beach. My cousins live in Hawthorne, California. I live in a place called Baldwin Hills. And we would go, and we have bonfires on the beach in Manhattan Beach, California. And sometimes we'd go down to Mexico, and we had a trailer, and we kept it down there, and we'd go surf fishing. And and we go to the Mexican restaurant, and the mariachis would be singing, and I'd sing harmony with them. So it was a really nice time growing up because the environment was really nice. I mean, the beaches, and also we would go to, we'd go to places like, Banff, and the really nice. I remember going there as a child. My dad would get a couple of weeks off in the summer, and we'd be in a station wagon with a trailer behind it sometimes, and then we'd drive all over the place. So it was great. It was a really great childhood. And he loved to fish, and he'd go fishing, and I'd go looking for, snakes and things. And my dad could remember when he was an older guy how he lost track of me on this Truckee River up near Tahoe, which is where I live today. And he remembered that when he was 80 years old, that he had the fear of what happened to Mike. But anyway, it was an ideal environment growing up. How do you get to the beach? It's not in a train or something, or a subway. No, Southern California. You get there in a car. Okay, what kind of car? The kind of car you fantasize about. My cousin had a 409, which is a powerful Chevy, which is the B side of the 45 single Surf and Safari. On the B side was 49. So we had what they called these double-sided hits. The DJs would play Surf and Safari, then when that had run its course, they'd turn the record over and play 409. So for 2 or 3 years, I was Surfing USA and Shutdown about a drag race. And so we had probably like 40 top 40 hits in just the first half of the 60s. So which is, it's kind of like a record. It's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. That must have been
But it was all about things we liked, whether it's California Girls or Barbara Ann went to a dance looking for romance, or our cars that we lusted after, and sometimes we actually owned them, and the environment, the beach, yeah, surfing, Surf and Safari, Surfing USA, Catch a Wave, Hawaii. Who wouldn't want to go to Hawaii? I mean, it's a beautiful spot. So we got to see all these places around the world. In fact, we went to Australia for the first time in the mid-'60s. And that was an amazing thing. That's one big surfing nation. And so we were very popular down there. And so, we've been very blessed, very fortunate. We did our song Surfing Safari. I think in Israel they caught it was a hit because they thought it was surfing Sephardic. But anyway, we have had fan letters from Russia, fan letters from China. I met a Iranian real estate agent in New Jersey one time who said that when he was growing up in Iran, they played our LPs at the beach that they went to back in Iran, wherever it was. And so we had the Saudi ambassador to the United States tell me in the 80s, he said that, I'm a fan, Mike. I used to play your cassette in my Austin Healey going to school in England. That's Saudi Arabia. And that guy's Prince Bandar. He's a really important guy there. I mean, he was important then, too, in the 80s. He had these armed guards with sabers, and he's sitting at his desk. But he loved the Beach Boys music. So, I mean, it's reached all around the world. So it's really nice because music can transcend ideologies, boundaries, you name it, it transcends it, Any race, religion, culture, everybody can enjoy our music, which is a great thing.
So true, so true. Were you surprised when you guys took off? Like people were
with what?
With when you guys were popular in the early '60s, like when you were just singing about stuff you liked, and then people were like, yeah, we dig that too, Like, were you surprised? Obviously, you must have been a bit.
Well, we were thrilled to hear our songs on the radio. The first song called "Surfin'," there was a contest at this radio station, that said they'd play 4 new records, and the one that got the most call-in votes would be the featured record for the next week or something. And so we had so many aunts and uncles and cousins and friends and family members. We easily won that contest, and that was "Surfin'." But it got the attention of Capitol Records, who signed us in 1962, and we came up with this song "Surfin' Safari." And 409 we had "Surfer Girl," and they kept doing album after album for a while, and single after single. And so I don't know if we were so surprised, but we heard like Jan and Dean do a song. And I said, well, we can do at least as good as that, because we harmonize. And so, but we did a song about surfing. No one had ever done a song literally about the art of surfing or the sport of surfing. Yeah, and we were the first ones to do that. I came up with the lyrics. My cousin Brian and I worked on the harmonies. So we did "Surfing" and "Surfing Safari" and "Surfing USA." I wrote the words. He did primarily the tracks, but we worked on the harmonies together. But so it wasn't such a surprise. It was just, there was a competitive nature there saying, okay, we can do as well as those guys. And we loved the harmonies of doo-wop, so we incorporated some of that stuff in our music, as well as the 4 freshmen who were brilliant musicians and great singers. They did what they call modern harmonies, and really incredibly unique chord progressions and harmonies. But we always focus on the 4-part harmonies with our rock beats, whether it be slow, medium, or fast. Now, and we're the only ones in the rock field that did that with the 4-part harmonies. There's other people that did 3 or 2, and like the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger's a great lead singer, and they had a great rock band, and they're very, very successful, but they don't sing harmonies like us, and so that just made us stand out a bit more. And that sound is warm. It makes you feel good when you listen to it. They say music soothes the savage beast, but harmonies can make people feel really good, and it influences just like that psychologist in Sheffield, England said, good vibrations, #1 for making people feel good. So I think it's a pretty cool deal to be able to do for a lifetime, basically, something that you started out as a family hobby.
It is a cool deal.
Yeah.
For sure. Very, very cool. Thanks, Mike. Anything else you want to say about, you're doing like a pretty rapid tour. You're hitting like a city a day in some cases.
But we have, after we do, I think it's Winnipeg, on a Saturday night we have 3 nights off, and we're going to fly to Toronto because our next show will be in Ontario. And then we'll do Mississauga, which is basically a suburb of Toronto. And then we're doing Peterborough, and then we do Sudbury. Sudbury's, our keyboard player came from Sudbury, but he studied piano, and he used to work in a smelter, and where they did nickel, In fact, I met a woman who's from Sudbury. She said she has about 20 times the nickel in her body than normal, than the usual person. So, and we've been there a few times, but we're going back. We'll be there, obviously not this Saturday night, but 2 Saturdays from now. That's our last Canadian date in Sudbury, if you can imagine. And then we drive to Toronto and then fly to California to do a charity show in Anaheim with John Stamos.
Nice. What can people expect at your show?
A lot of music. the people can expect a lot of music. We do an hour with a 20-minute intermission followed by another hour of music. So I like to start retro. I like to start with the surfing songs. And we end the first half or first hour with our car songs, you know, ending up with I Get Around. So, and then we take a break for 20 minutes and come back, and we start really slow then. We do our song Warmth of the Sun. And then I dedicate that to my writing partner on that song, Brian Wilson. And there's a little video of Disney Plus has a documentary of the Beach Boys, and it's still streaming now. So, you know, we let people know about that and encourage them to watch the documentary if they're interested. And it shows the origins of the group, of the early days, the family connection and stuff. But at the end of it, Brian and I and a fellow named David Marks, who took Alan Jardine's place when Al left the group right after Surfin', our first song. He was going to be a dentist, so he came back in, but he left for a couple of years. But anyway, and Bruce Johnson and I, and Brian, I sat next to Brian, and he has his physical issues, there's no question about it. But mentally, he could remember, his long-term memory is really good. He was remembering stuff that happened in our high school days, because we'd go to each other's games and that kind of thing. So we were best friends at that time. We loved listening to the music in the car and singing together and harmonizing, you know. So, so it was really nice. The end of the documentary, we went to this place called Paradise Cove, which is where our first album cover was shot. We're all in Pendleton Mills shirts, the blue ones, and in some khakis and stuff, and so we returned there for that little get together, which is pretty unique. 60 years later, over 60 years later.
Very cool. This morning I was looking at some old film footage of you guys goofing around with fire hall, and like there was some fire engine stuff. And
oh yeah.
Fire hats and
there was
goofing around the pool and having a blast, and it's pretty neat to see that.
And we did the video for Sloop John B, which is probably one of the worst videos in the world, jumping in Carl Wilson's pool and everything like that. And then, but the fire hats, there was an album after Good Vibrations, after the Pet Sounds album and Good Vibrations, there was a thing called Smile, which my cousin shelved it because he took some drugs he shouldn't have taken, and he got paranoid and thought that he caused a fire down the way when they were doing the session called Fire, and everybody had firemen's helmets on. So there was weird times at that time, amazing tracks, unique vocals, but you know, I wasn't involved in the music of that particular album like it was in previously. So anyway, but it was, I mean, the tracks are powerful and they're unique. That's Brian's forte. Yeah, but there was stuff done around that time that nobody should have done. My cousin Dennis passed away in 1983 because he couldn't get up off the drugs and the alcohol. And my cousin Carl started smoking when he was 12 or 13, and the statistics aren't good. The younger you start smoking, the less time on earth you spend. So he died 26 years ago, which was a drag. I mean, what a great voice, what a great talent, a great guitar player. He was amazing, and we miss him. But the thing about music is, you can find a guitar player that's amazing and can play everything that you ever played on the record. So, and we have a great guitarist. Yeah, his name is John Wiedemeyer. We call him Weed for short, and he's legal in a lot of places too. At any rate, and then the guy that does our high parts that Brian did on the original recordings, his name is Brian Eichenberger. He was 18 years with the recent incarnation of the Four Freshmen. So he's used to singing that high part, which it's an amazing thing to be able to sing the falsetto in that way. And he'll do the lead on Don't Worry Baby, for instance. He nails it. It's so similar to Brian. Brian is Brian, he's very unique, but they're both Brians. Brian Eichenberger, though, sounds amazingly great on those high parts. So, you know, we're obsessed with and focused on recreating those songs as close as humanly possible to the recordings.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's wonderful to spend time with you today.
And thank you for coming over. Made it easy on me.
Oh, you made it easy on me too. I have to admit, I was nervous, you know.
You were?
Oh, for sure. I've been
A
doing
grown man, nervous.
30 years of video, and I was thought, oh my goodness, I'm meeting this guy, a hero, right? Anyway, thank you for your time. Is there anything I didn't ask, or did you want to keep talking about, or you know, is there anything?
The one thing I probably didn't cover is meditation, which I do every day.
I understand that.
And I
Can you
learned
talk a little
it.
bit about that?
Sure.
Okay. How does that go? How do you meditate? Why do you meditate?
Why I meditate? There's a lot of reasons. The world is a you know, challenging place, and the more depth of perception and breadth of perception. See, if you're using what they say is a few percent of your conscious mind, like the psychologists say we do, if you learn TM, even if you're transcendental meditation, even if you're 80 years old, your IQ will grow. That doesn't happen because you have your waking state, your dreaming state, and your deep sleep state of consciousness that we're all familiar with. But this is a whole other level of consciousness, transcendental consciousness, you could call it, pure consciousness of being. But it's at the source of thought, which is at the source of all creation. So when you contact that, you're getting not only deep rest and relaxation, but expanded awareness, so that things that used to overwhelm you or get you really angry, you can deal with them, and they don't leave a residual effect like anxiety, heart disease, you know, that, strokes, all those things that are all too common with the way people eat and live and drink and all that stuff. So I found a long time ago, Maharishi taught us in December of 1967, and then he invited us to go to India, which I was the only beach boy to go to India in the spring of '68. In fact, George Harrison and I both had our birthdays. He on February 25th, I on March 15th. We're both Pisces. So when he passed away, I wrote a song called Pisces Brothers, which I'd like to do, you know, in our concert, because it has a lot of emotion to it, but it also has to do with what the things that George liked and the things that I like, and we both like TM and meditation and Maharishi, but he was really into Hare Krishna. He did that song, My Sweet Lord. And so he had the Hare Krishna people living in his estate in London. So it's something he's really, really into. So I made up this chorus, Jai Gurudev, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Jai Gurudev, little darling, here comes the sun. And so, you know, it's just a very emotional thing to think of. He was a great guy and a great, obviously, songwriter, but very spiritual. He also loved car racing. In fact, we went to see them in Portland one time, and Lennon Strode was out, and he said, okay, when we get to that part of the song, everybody shake your heads, and the girls are all screaming, nobody will know that he didn't sing the part. It was pretty hilarious. And what did we talk to him backstage? Girls and cars. It's pretty universal and international, I'd say. So, yeah, but the meditation has helped me personally to be able to go through, not be subject to getting into too much alcohol to relax or drugs to relax, because I learned to meditate, and I found that those things just didn't, I was already relaxed. So why would you want to do something that leaves you with a bad residual effect? In other words, you drink too much, you get either sick or hungover, and that's no fun. If you smoke too much pot or something, you get dry throat, and it's not great. I don't condemn anybody for wanting to relax, but there's a way of relaxing naturally with the TM technique, where you go to a deeper level of rest and even deep sleep, which your metabolism slows down such a deep level of rest that your blood chemistry actually changes. You actually get rid of the fatigue, from which the blood lactate is an indicator of fatigue. Adrenaline is an indicator of fight or flight, your challenge and stuff. So your bloodstream completely normalizes and gets rid of all the negative, and left with positivity and energy and clarity. So it's been a huge, enormous help for me to be able to do, not only survive, but thrive. We're doing as well this year as we've ever done. I've got the Songwriters Hall of Fame I'm being inducted into on June 12th. July 4th, we have the Capitol 4th in Washington, D.C. It'll be on PBS, but it'll be streaming on PBS after that. And we're doing our shows in Europe. We're going to have 10,000 people come to our concert in England, it looks like, which is great. And then we go to Spain for a while, and then we come back and do some really great shows. Like, well, for instance, when we come back from Spain, we fly to Salt Lake on Delta Airlines, and we go to Park City, which is up above Salt Lake, and we do 2 nights with the symphony orchestra up there. And then we fly to Colorado and do a place called Red Rocks, which is this iconic place in the mountains, also with the symphony orchestra. So we have symphonic charts that we can do, and so we're just enjoying ourselves so tremendously. It's really musically having a great time, but also it's great to see so many fans and friends and and multiple ages come out to see it. It's really heartwarming. So that's one of the things that really make me motivated to keep doing what we do, as long as you're able to do it properly. If you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, because there are people who just lip sync or whatever, and I'm not into that. So I'm just the minute I can't do something, I won't do something.
Well, you're doing well now.
Yeah, I'm having a great time. How bad can it be? We're in Victoria, and we're going to Vancouver, and we're driving to Kelowna.
I bet you've got a lot more stories, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, no, there have to be stories after more than 60 years.
Lifetime of music and travel.
Oh yeah.
It's wonderful. It
Yeah.
really is. Thank you.
Like I say, it beats a real job.
For sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.